Alright, welcome back. This is MDawg. We're going to do a shorter episode this time on our leveling account. I actually kind of messed up. I had a video going and then I sort of stopped the progression of recording, and it just became easier to start over recording. So what I did in the video up until this point when I was recording was we did a little bit more bream fishing at Old Berg, caught a few decent bream, another small common carp on garlic dough, but basically it was just an excuse for me to stand there leveling, oh gosh, I gotta put a clip on this line, leveling up harvesting baits and ground bait. And so that's basically what I've been doing. I am here fishing at Winding Rivulet. This is an interesting spot. We're using garlic dough on the second and third line, and we're using worms on the first line. Just trying to see like how active are the bream here. People have been saying that they're catching some bream here, which is great. Interesting to have a Winding Rivulet bream spot, especially if it's fairly active. And for whatever reason, for me, the 1044 Old Berg spot, while being good, has never felt great. At least not the few times we've been there. We probably haven't fully committed to it since unlocking both bream ground bait as well as garlic dough, which we now have. So this line actually has a size 22 hook and worm. We're just trying to get bite rate on this one. Although I might push this up a little bit since it's nighttime now. Let's go 10 and red worm. I don't know. If we're going to go red worm, I think we stay small. If we're going to go 10, I think we actually go to garlic dough. Let's do that. Let's just go garlic dough full on at this point. 15 meter clip. So what we've been doing, we've leveled at harvesting baits up to 40.2%. How did we do that? We did that by making, if I go to baits here, making a ton of garlic dough, 1,200 garlic dough. So cheaper for the ingredients to get them in the grocery store at Old Berg, but the problem with Old Berg is they're out of stock of garlic. But garlic is available at both the Winding and the Mosquito grocery store. The other thing I've been doing is making a whole ton of ground bait using feed and anise oil. Because remember, we need to get up to 40% to unlock the next place. We're at 37.8, but I will tell you, unfortunately, a lot of times we have not been getting points. So we are having to make a lot of ground bait. The only positive thing is there's 38. Feed and anise oil are pretty cheap. Feed is just cheap. Anise oil, because you get 5 portions per bottle, it doesn't add up that quick in silver. So it's worth it. The whole reason why I want to push to 40% in ground bait right now is if we make our next copper trip, it would be nice to be able to make carp ground bait. And when does the carp ground bait recipe unlock? You got it at 40% of ground bait. So if I go here and go down to the ground bait recipes, regular carp requires ground peas as the base. We already can do the rest of it. So we can make we can make fake carp ground bait. But if we want to make the real one with ground peas, you go to making ground bait, you go to 4th level components, the mixture it allows is ground peas. So then we're actually creating real carp mix. So our next trip to copper, not only presumably, if we've unlocked 35% on bottom fishing, will we be able to use a carp rig, but we also would be able to make 4th level components, which means we'll be able to make carp ground bait. And what we'll probably do with that is have carp ground bait on one of the rods, which means we would be using natural bait on that rod, and or just throwing in the ground bait by hand. Because we're not going to be able to use ground bait with the carp rig, which is the primary rig that we'll be using at copper. And so we'll just have to figure out, is it worth it to have the third rod in with the natural bait? so that we can feed the water by having that ground bait in the water? Or is it enough to just throw the ground bait in by hand and not have it in a cage on any of the rods? 3.3, 31.6 on bottom fishing. You love to see that. All right, now on this middle rod, we are finally gonna do, whoa, we almost just popped the leader because my mouse wheel is so sensitive. It is really hard at times just to flick it up by one. All right, 2.41, and we got 31.8% bottom. So we're gonna set this, it's on the wrong clip. We're gonna set this at 15, so it actually goes to where it's supposed to go. And I like the bite rate we're getting here on all three rods, but especially on the first two rods, because both of these have size 10 hooks. This one has a large one hook, which, you know, hopefully we'll still catch some fish, but I especially like that those 10s. The other thing is to try to drum up extra points in our bottom fishing. I actually changed this rig to basic bottom, while the other two are on paternoster. Now, you'll notice that I have a few bleak in my net. So, as you hopefully remember from a previous episode or from my stream, we did come over here using fly or bloodworm or pearl barley. All of them were working. We caught a few bleak before I messed up the recording. And that's pretty much all we've done. We started at Old Berg, caught a few bream, and then jumped over here to winding so that I could continue to make more garlic dough and level up our bait harvesting and ground bait. And because I knew that this was supposedly a decent bream spot, I decided while we were doing all that, we would throw in our stuff here in the corner of G3 at Winding Rivulet and just see if we could hook into any bream. And it's been good. It's actually been pretty good. Been impressive. So we'll see if we can get a few more points and then we'll wrap it up. This is going to be the longest short video I've ever made. So our fishing here at this spot is obviously close to coming to an end. It's 7 a.m. We'll probably sit here till 8 a.m. I just want to point out that it's actually been really good. If you haven't fished this spot and you're looking for an alternative bream spot, this is really nice. 32.8 by the way on bottom fishing. So good. So happy that we're slowly getting some of these points towards 35%. We'll give it another minute or two, but it's really been good. I'm actually going to show you my net here once we get a second. I just want to keep the fish rolling as long as we can, because once we get to about 8 a.m., we'll stop for the day, but you could go longer. I mean, I'd say you're still very possible to get a reasonable percentage of these larger bream, maybe till 9 or even 10 some mornings, but it does just get slower and slower. So, I mean, this is the list of bream we've caught. We had a wide-eye marker. There also was a nace at one point. That was on garlic dough. But mostly all these bream. And again, I think I need to be fair. Like at 1044 Old Berg, we've had a few bream. Mostly I've just been spent so much of the time there leveling up bait harvesting or cooking. Not cooking, bait harvesting or ground bait, that I haven't very efficiently been catching the bream and throwing the lure back, or the bait back in as soon as possible. So we've definitely given this spot a little more of a chance, but I've just been really impressed with how well it's done. You know, imagine imagine fishing for bream here. 32.9 by the way. And then immediately in the daytime, just like walking up here and fishing for flies, fishing for bleak. And then, you know, at the end of the day, fishing for bleak here, you fast travel to Old Berg, fish for bream in the next overnight. When the night's over, when, you know, 9 a.m., you fast travel back to Winding and hit the bleak spot again, or a different bleak spot or whatever. And then that night you fish here at Winding for bream. I'm just saying you could kind of keep that going. It'd be a heck of a way to, you know, accrue a lot of silver because of the bleak during the day and the bream at night, and a lot of bottom fishing points because of the bream at night. So I love it when like spots like this are near each other in terms of the bleak and the bream. Gives you a clear nighttime, daytime delineation. And also, when you've got multiple options for bream, in other words, you can just sort of naturally allow them to rest by alternating. I just think like situations like this, if you're of a certain level, this is great. I mean, you're going to be doing really well. Bleak. And this is with fly. Again, they're also biting on pearl barley, bloodworm, probably other things as well. Castor usually works. I had this, wow, that's almost 100 grams. I had this one like really fun experience with a really long bolo rod where I just could not get the fish to come in, just like swinging around. I don't know. I was on a weird slant. This was like when I first started playing the game. Very bizarre, but for a moment there, I thought we might do something similar. Okay. We are catching the bleak. All right, so let's go check and see if this fish is really on our last rod. I never pulled this third rod out of the water, hoping we'd get one more bream or something, like we did. All right, let me go check cafe and all that, and then we'll wrap it up. So here we come to the cafe. So one thing I did want to mention, I think it's worth, we're one wide-eye bream away from that. I think it's worth keeping this in mind. That's 167 silver, less than an hour. That's awesome. Okay, so I'm gonna suggest that it is worth, let's see, 32 gram, 20 gram. It is worth keeping these non-markers in your bag, and then just selling everything else. These bleak, because there is a very good chance that even though there's no bleak order now, it is possible next time we log in that one of the bleak orders that's like 5 bleak over 20 gram for 15 to 20 silver could just be available. And so by holding these, which, you know, these are worth nothing, 0.24 silver, By holding these, we have a chance of turning 0.24 silver into 15 to 20 silver just by letting them sit there, because we know we'll probably play again later tonight or tomorrow or whatever. So just a recommendation, especially with non-marker fish or even with markers. Sometimes if you know I'm going to play again tonight, like I already have plans, or I'm going to play again in the morning, then just hold on to some of your fish. You never know. Cafe orders could like double or triple the value of those fish that are in your net. You'd want to be careful and not like wait too long, because they do start to become worth less and less the longer they're sitting in your bag. But if it's just a few hours, then you should be fine. Okay, so we are now over 18.5 in terms of our level. We're not really worried about that. What we want to do is keep seeing this number stay as high as possible, the silver we've got. But where our focus is on is getting 35% for now on bottom fishing, as well as making ground bait up to 40%, and bait harvesting. Really, we're just trying to get this up as high as we can. Eventually, we want to get it to this, which is 60%, thinking ahead about our next trip to Norway. But first, I think we'll make a second trip to Copper, but we've still got a little work left to do before we'll be ready for that. Okay, as always, thanks for watching, and tight lines. I'll see you next time.